All right, welcome everyone. We might get started for this evening's meeting, council meeting on the 20th of May 2025. Welcome to councillors and officers and particularly to members of the gallery who've joined us this evening. Thank you and welcome back. I can speak on behalf of the councillor group to say we're delighted to be back in person, and thank you for taking the time to join us here today, and also for we've obviously instituted a new registration process on the back of the February meeting, and I'd just like to thank you for taking part in that and acknowledging the changes that have occurred. But we've done that with the best of intentions to ensure that we can have a safe and respectful environment where we can conduct our business in front of residents, so you can see transparently what we do and ask your questions, which you can submit, and many of you have today. So thank you for that. Before we get started, I just wanted to run through, in light of the happenings over recent months and in February, just some of our governance rules and safety considerations that we ask all attendees to observe in following the guidelines for our meeting. So a couple of quick ones. These form part of our governance rules and also are very common across councils across Victoria, as well as parliaments that also have galleries. But we do ask that members of the community don't interject or speak over councillors during the meetings. This is a platform and an area for councillors who've been elected to conduct debates and make important decisions for our community, and we'll do that, and we do ask you to observe that in a respectful manner. Recording devices, noting that there was a number of devices in February that were either being used to play audio or music. We just ask that people don't use those devices during our meetings. Recording is not allowed in accordance with our privacy and governance rules, so we ask that members of the audience refrain from doing that. Any offensive material, placards or banners, again, are not allowed within the council chamber. These are consistent rules across councils. And lastly, if in the event that there is this type of behaviour, we do have a policy, and as Mayor I'll issue a warning to any individuals who breach that, and then they will be asked to leave if the behaviour continues. So it's unfortunate I have to go through that, but I'm sure we'll have an excellent meeting tonight and going on into the future. But thank you for taking the time to listen to that and for your cooperation. We do have a full agenda today, and councillors, we're very much looking forward to getting into that and debating some really important reports, and we thank you for your presence here today. All the public questions that were received and deemed valid under the governance rules will be answered towards the end of the meeting, consistent with the structure from our previous two meetings. And as per previous meetings, the CEO will talk through any questions that were deemed invalid, and residents will be notified. On that note, we'll get started just with some brief introductions. So I'd like to acknowledge again my fellow councillors here, as well as our executive team that's joined us tonight. On my right, Glenn Patterson, the CEO, Catherine Surlis on Glenn's right, who's the Acting Director for City Planning and Infrastructure. And to my left is Jen Bednar, Director of Customer and Corporate Services. And we have Callum Paddy, who's the Acting Director of Community Life, just next to the Deputy Mayor there. And we welcome all our audio-visual team, Office of Council staff, and those senior staff from Council who are here with us today. Thank you. I'll now move to 1.1, which is our Statement of Acknowledgement. The City of Casey is home to a remarkable diversity of cultures, languages, faiths, identities, landscapes and stories. From our first Australians to our most recent arrivals and every wave between, the City of Casey welcomes and represents all community members and their respective ambitions to live healthy, rewarding and happy lives. These intersecting and overlapping community stories form Casey's collective identity and contribute to its evolving, rich history. We recognise this diversity as our strength, and we aim to share, nurture and celebrate it. 1.2, I'll read Casey's diversity statement. The City of Casey is home to remarkable diversity with many cultures, languages, faiths and communities of worship, ages, LGBTQI+ identities and landscapes, together forming our rich and dynamic community story. From our first Australians to our most recent arrivals and every wave in between. The City of Casey welcomes and represents all community members and respective ambitions to live healthy, rewarding and happy lives. We recognise this diversity as our strength, and we aim to share, nurture and celebrate it. I do note that that is actually a duplicate of what I've just read out, so apologies for that. I think that's, yeah, but that does reflect our diversity statement. I'll move now to number 2, which is declaration of interests. I've considered my obligations under Section 130 of the Local Government Act 2020 and do not have a conflict of interest relevant to the agenda papers. Do any council officers have a conflict of interest regarding reports presented this evening? Nope. Do my fellow councillors have any conflicts of interest in the agenda that they wish to declare?
Yes, I do, Mayor.
Councillor Dowling.
Chair, I wish to declare that I'm council representative on item 4.4, Connected Libraries Board, and I do not receive any personal advantage from being on the board, and it is not considered a conflict of interest and is exempt under Section 129D of the Local Government Act 2020.
Thank you, Councillor Dowling. That has been noted and will be noted for item 4.4. Moving on to item 3, confirmation of minutes. There are 2 previous meeting minutes to be confirmed. This is for the council meeting and the closed council meeting that were held on the 15th of April 2025. Councillors, is there a mover and a seconder to confirm the minutes of the meeting? Councillor Rowe moving and seconding Councillor Walter. Thank you, councillors. I'll put that to a vote now. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Carried unanimously. And on that, I will now move to our officers' reports. So there are 6 officers' reports in this evening's open council, and we'll get straight into item 1, which is 4.1. The subject is the amendment of C295 case to the Casey Planning Scheme. It's the draft Casey Fields South Employment and Devon Meadows Precinct Structure Plan. And the officer to speak to this report is Michael Ford, the Acting Manager, Growth and Investment. Thank you, Mr. Ford.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, councillors. Precinct structure plans are long-term plans of 20 to 30 years that guide the development of and the provision of infrastructure in our growth area communities. These plans leave a legacy that shapes development in these communities and the commitments for council in the years ahead. Since 2021, officers have worked with the Victorian Planning Authority to prepare the draft Casey Fields South Employment and Devon Meadows Precinct Structure Plan. The draft plan will facilitate employment and residential development in parts of Cranbourne East, Clyde, Devon Meadows and Junction Village. Following public exhibition of the draft plan in March 2025, this report presents a milestone in the plan drafting process where officers seek the Council's endorsement of our draft submission on the draft plan. Council's submission is the key opportunity for the elected council to set the vision, policy and direction of officer advocacy for the future steps of the plan drafting process, including officer representations to the Independent Standing Advisory Committee scheduled for later this year. Given council is required to implement this plan through the assessment and permitting of development, and the delivery and maintenance of infrastructure to service these new communities, council is an actively engaged stakeholder in the submission process. Officer advocacy in the draft submission is aligned with community priorities in the current and draft council plans and directed at responding to growth, improving connectivity, providing financially sustainable infrastructure and promoting local employment. On the headline issues detailed in the report, officers support requirements for the earlier delivery of mobile telecommunications infrastructure, oppose council being responsible for the delivery of intersections on state roads, advocate for a waterway and drainage network that maximises the land available for housing and jobs, advocate for a more financially sustainable community and recreation facilities, and advocate for the right tools to achieve tree-lined streets at higher residential densities. In summary, officers seek the endorsement of the draft officer submission at attachment 1 to the report for transmission to the Victorian Planning Authority as adopted council policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Councillors, do we have any questions for Mr. Ford in relation to the item 4.1? No questions. Thank you, Mr Ford. All right, councillors, we have a recommendation on the screen here. Do we have a mover or seconder for this? Got a mover, Councillor Crowther, and a seconder? Oh, Councillor Taylor, thank you. Any councillors in opposition? No? We'll now move to Councillor Crowther. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, through you, Mayor. I understand the community concern about the Devon Meadows PSP. This is currently a semi-rural area and residents are concerned about the addition of a large population without the appropriate roads or services to cater for the residents. Whilst the state government has determined this PSP is going ahead, Council's role is to advocate for the current and future residents, to help shape the design and provide the best outcomes for the future community. Looking at the officer's report, I support their recommendation that Casey not be the lead agency on the eight state road projects associated with this PSP. I refer to the South Gippsland Bilardo Road Roundabout project as to why Council is not the best agency to lead state road projects. There's been significant delays and cost blowouts on the Bilardo Road Roundabout, and ratepayers have funded the additional costs associated with this project. I acknowledge, hear and share the frustration of the community with this project and want to avoid this situation again. It would be a financial risk to Council to take on another 8 state road projects. Coming back to this PSP, I also support the officer's recommendation to maximise the street tree canopy by encouraging rear driveways in the smaller residential lots to allow more street tree planting. This councillor group is committed to improving Casey's street tree canopy, and improving the design of this PSP will help achieve this goal. I support the officer's submission to the planning scheme amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Crowther. Councillor Taylor, would you like to speak to the motion?
I think Councillor Crowther has expressed all my concerns. So, I agree. I believe that I agree with the officer's recommendations of objecting to those issues as well. And thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Pereira.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I just thought of a question, and I couldn't find it in there very quickly. I was looking. Is there any comment about any compulsory acquisitions that might need to be made to actually implement this PSP?
I might refer that question to Mr Ford.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Pereira. Through you, Mayor. There's no commentary on compulsory acquisition in the report, just because council choosing that route would have additional financial challenges that are not funded by the accompanying contributions plan.
Thank you, Mr Ford. Any further comment, Councillor Pereira? No. Thank you. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Perry?
I've read through the plan and what's here at the moment, and I'm looking at it and I'm tying it into the next, I don't know if you can jump ahead, but the next officer's report is about Berwick and maintaining the village feel and look of Berwick. I'm looking at this and there's an opportunity to create something really beautiful in the south of Casey. There's no information on design, like there's zones, things are set up that way, but there's no real discussion of what things are going to look like. At what point does that come into the plan? Does council have any impact on that?
Might take that as a question for Mr Ford. Mr Ford?
Thanks, Councillor Perry. Through you, Mayor. Councillor Perry, this plan is high-level concept. Unfortunately, we're not at the detail that we can give you that comfort of what it will look like, and we'll resolve that detail when an application for a permit comes in. So we have some broad parameters to work in terms of design, and we fill out those gaps in the permit process.
Yeah, thanks for that. And yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from, but I'm just thinking, if we have created a couple of beautiful areas within Casey, how can we create, beautiful spaces moving forward? And is this the forum to do it? I don't know, but yeah, just looking at this plan, it is high level, I get it. But how do we make sure that things are built beautiful for the future in the south of Casey like they are in the north of Casey?
Thanks for that, Councillor Perry. I might take that as a comment. I will just note, councillors, that there is, in terms of the governance rules and structure of debate, questions are best directed to the officer prior to us opening motions, and so that is the time for councillors on the floor to make their comments and commentary. So I encourage you to make those questions either in briefings or before we go to debate on motions. But I'll note that comment, Councillor Perry. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Perry, I believe you have already spoken. I'll just check with governance. All right. I will take that note, and with no other councillors speaking, I might make a few comments to wrap up before we go to a vote. I'd just like to reiterate my support for this motion, and I think Councillor Crowther made an excellent contribution and touched on a number of significant points. For me, yeah, it is the state roads that they are state responsibility, should be funded and maintained as they should be across council across Casey by the state government. So I think I'm very supportive of that element of the submission from our officers. The tree line canopy, as Councillor Crowther mentioned, has been a real focus of our councillor group. It's come out of all our discussions and work strategically, so it's great to see that forming part of the submission that our council's putting into this PSP. And I think the last one, which Mr Ford noted and is in the document, is just the importance of getting reliable telecommunications in our new areas. This is a new PSP. And we've seen what's happened in the past with previous PSPs where there hasn't been provision or consideration for mobile phone towers, and there's just a plethora of black spots that are now being worked through by different levels of government. And it's important that we have that forethought to look at how that's going to be dealt with before houses are being built and people are going in. So I'm very supportive of that element of the submission, so I'll be supporting this motion. On that note, if there's no further speakers, I might put this report to a vote. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr Ford. We'll now move on to 4.2, item 4.2, which is the draft Berwick Village Major Activity Centre Structure Plan. And back to you, Mr Ford, Acting Manager of Growth and Investment.
Thank you, Mayor. A structure plan for an activity centre is a forward-looking 15 to 20-year plan detailing how council will manage growth in the centre into the future. These plans coordinate council actions and guide private investment through planning and built form controls that apply to development. Council regularly reviews the structure plans for our centres to ensure these plans continue to reflect community aspirations and respond to current Victorian Government planning policy. The current Berwick Village structure plan was prepared in 2011 and is overdue for review. Tonight, this report presents a significant milestone in shaping the future of the Berwick Village, with officers seeking that the elected council endorse the draft Berwick Village Major Activities Structure Plan, May 2025, to enable public exhibition. Officers began preparing the draft plan in 2023 and first engaged the community to inform the development of the plan in March and April 2024. During this engagement, the community told officers that it valued Berwick Village's character, enhanced open space and pedestrian and cycle networks. The draft plan comprises a 15-year vision, key directions, a precincts plan, and planning and built form controls that respond to this initial community engagement. The draft plan proposes to manage building height in the high street retail strip to protect the character of Berwick Village, valued by the community, and provide growth opportunities elsewhere in the structure plan area that will not impact the character of the village. The draft plan also includes an implementation plan that coordinates council's action in the centre over the short, medium and long term. In summary, officers seek the endorsement of the draft structure plan to enable public exhibition of the plan. Should the council decide to endorse the plan tonight, public exhibition of the draft plan will occur in June and July, where the community will have the opportunity to review the plan and make a submission to council officers. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr Ford. Councillors, do we have any questions in relation to the Berwick Village Major Activity Centre structure plan before we go to motions or debates? Councillor Taylor.
So, just want to, through you, Mayor, who will the draft building height control, how will the draft building height control ensure new development will fit into with the Berwick Village look and feel while still allowing growth?
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Through you, Mayor. Councillor Taylor, the draft structure plan includes a building height plan, which proposes for the first time a 3-storey height limit in the high street retail strip. And once the plan is finalised and becomes part of the planning scheme, it will be used to assess development applications in that high street retail strip. To the second part of your question around growth opportunities elsewhere in the precinct, the Clyde Road corridor located outside that high street retail strip is allowed to have high densities and more intensive development, much separated from that retail strip, to answer your question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Ford. Any other questions, councillors?
Through you, Mayor.
Councillor Perry.
This might be more of a comment than a question again, but I've read this pretty closely, like this, and I think a few councillors will take have a fair bit of interest in it. I know the community's got a lot of interest in it. I mean, you could say Berwick Village a lot of people would say it was ruined when the Woolies went in 25 years ago, and then the IGA turned into a Coles. And next thing you know, a KFC's gone in around the corner. I think I guess...
Just a note, sorry, Councillor Perry, this is for questions. You will have an opportunity to make a contribution and you can make comments in terms of the debate, but this is a time to ask questions of the officer.
All right. Well, I guess the question is, we can make draft plans like this and control building heights and what buildings look like, but we can't. This is a direct question. Can we control what sort of businesses go into Berwick Village?
Thanks, Councillor Perry. Through you, Mayor. Councillor Perry, we can only control land uses and defined land uses only where they're prohibited. Otherwise, any developer has the right to make an application for any land use where it's not prohibited, and officers are required to assess that application on its merits.
Thank you, Mr Ford. Any other questions, councillors? No, we might now move into the motion that is presented on the screen, the recommendation from officers as noted on the screen. Do we have a mover and seconder for this motion? Councillor Dowling, thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Ross. Sorry, Councillor Ambrose, you were trumped by Councillor Ross, who seconded that one. Anyone in opposition to the motion? No, we will now move to contributions. As mover, Councillor Dowling, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, a lot of thought has gone into the planning of the Berwick district, and
Can you just turn your microphone on?
yeah, a lot of thought's gone into the planning over a long time for the Berwick Village and one of the main things that we try and do is maintaining the feel of a village atmosphere. So any designs that come across the desk will certainly be viewed on their merit and what contribution they can make aesthetically to the village itself.
Great, thank you, Councillor Dowling. Councillor Ross, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's great that we're acknowledging the unique nature of our activity centres, and Casey is a huge place, as we all know, and to be able to identify activity centres as unique and individual, I think, is a really important part of Casey moving forward. And I also encourage residents to fully participate in this next opportunity of community consultation, as we have shown through local laws and through our draft council plans. We are very open to engaging with residents and hearing your thoughts, your concerns, and we love your passion and your interest in our community.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Ambrose.
Through you, Mayor, thank you, and thank you to the officers for doing this report. Yes, Berwick's always had that unofficial sort of title, the Berwick Charm, and it has a beautiful representation that reflects nicely in the city of Casey. I do have some concerns, though, with the further developments with traffic and making sure that with the increased amount of foot traffic, but also car traffic, that is incorporated and we can conduct and people put their input in when it does come to about if it does get voted in. So I am looking forward to this and I'm in for support, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ambrose. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No other councillors? I'll make a contribution because I've spent a lot of time in Berwick over the last 6 months. I've had a lovely time with Councillor Dowling walking through the Berwick Main Street and really seen how vibrant it is, but how unique it is to Casey. And I think it's incredibly important that any work that's done, any development that does occur or improvements actually maintain that. And I'm having had conversations with officers and with Councillor Dowling, I am comfortable and confident that this structure plan is an improvement. It will allow for appropriate improvements to be made that still maintain that great village-like feel. There are some significant and important action plans that come out of this that will go obviously to consultation, but I'm really excited to see some connections with some of our green spaces like Wilson Botanic. There's a proposal long-term for a shared user path that connects the two, which is they're the two main really important hubs of that old Berwick town, and I think it's a great initiative. I'm also comfortable with the height controls that have been proposed, and I think in that village centre, I think that's appropriate, and then there's greater scope outside of that, which I think will be good for the town of Berwick. So I'm supportive of this motion. Wanted to thank the officers for all their work. I note that this work started in 2023, long before we came as council, and there's been a lot of consultation with groups, trader groups and residents, so thank you for that, and I'll be supporting this motion. And short of any other councillors wanting to contribute, we might go to a vote. So all those in favour, raise your hands. Thank you, councillors. That's carried. Thank you. Thanks, officers. We'll now move on to item 4.3, which is the Cranbourne Hub project endorsement. That's the item name. We've got Miss Kerry New here, Manager of City and Asset Planning, to speak to the item. Thanks, Kerry.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, councillors. We've reached an exciting milestone in the evolution of the Cranbourne Hub project. The Cranbourne Hub represents a significant investment for the benefit of residents across the south of Casey. This three-level building, to be located on a council car park at 1 to 7 Lyle Street, will bring together integrated service delivery for council's customer service and youth services, connected libraries and Peninsula Community Legal Centre. The business case for rationalising existing owned and leased facilities into one fit-for-purpose integrated site is supported by structure planning for the Cranbourne Major Activity Centre and the Casey Complex. Extensive planning and co-design has informed the location, the partner tenants and design features, ensuring the project will meet the needs of future users. The recent community consultation overwhelmingly indicates that this project is important and will serve the community well. We gained valuable insights that will inform the next stage of design and moving it to a planning approval phase. 3 parking studies have confirmed that there is ample supply of parking in Cranbourne, in excess of 1,000 spaces within 400 metres of the hub site. That's public spaces. It is ideally situated to allow for multi-purpose trips and public transport. I note that council has received a petition on this project, which will be tabled subsequently in the council agenda. I can assure you that all councillors have been provided with a copy of this petition, which raises concerns previously shared as part of the recent consultation on the hub and included in the documentation as part of this report. We're seeking a commitment to move forward with this project. Funding is embedded in the draft budget and financial plan, and their adoption formalises the commitment to deliver this project. It is appropriate for a municipality like Casey to continue to invest in significant community infrastructure that allows its residents to easily access essential services. a place that is safe, welcoming and accessible. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Ms New. Councillors, is there any questions for Ms New in relation to this item? No questions. On that note, we will move into debate. We've got a motion presented on the screen. Do we have a mover and seconder for this motion? Councillor Rowe? Oh, if you can just turn your microphone on. Thanks, Mr Rowe.
It's all electronic, you know, I'm not used to it. I wish to move the officer's recommendation as a motion that Council, 1, notes the findings of the 2025 Cranbourne Hub Community Engagement Activity. 2, notes the inclusion of the Cranbourne Hub project in the 2025 and 26 draft budget and the draft financial plan of 2025 to 35 at a total project cost of $40.3 million. 3, provides in-principle endorsement for the Cranbourne Hub project to be delivered at 1 to 3 Lyle Street, Cranbourne. 4, notes the adoption of the 25-26 budget and financial planning of 25 to 2035, formalises the commitment to deliver the Cranbourne Hub project. And an additional note, Mr Speaker, is 5, that we receive a report in 2026 detailing the outcomes and recommendations for additional capital investments arising from an investigation of pedestrian connectivity, parking and any other amenity upgrades that will support accessibility in the proximity of the Cranbourne Hub site at 1 to 3 Lyle Street, Cranbourne.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Just confirming that you're raising that as an amendment to the motion. Yeah, so just for the benefit of those in the audience and at home and councillors, so the original motion, which was the first 4 points, which was in the agenda, Councillor Rowe has made an amendment which now is shown on the screen, which includes an additional point 5, and I'll read that point 5 again just to note the amendment, which is to receive a report in 2026 detailing the outcome and recommendations for additional capital investment arising from an investigation of pedestrian connectivity, parking and other amenity upgrades that will support accessibility in proximity to the Cranbourne Hub site at 1 to 3 Lyle Street, Cranbourne. So that is the motion that's been put forward. Is there a seconder for that motion, councillors? Councillor Dazon, thank you. Is there any speakers in opposition to the motion? Councillor Eves and Councillor Crowther. Thank you. So we'll now move into debate and we'll offer the speaking rights to Councillor Rowe. Councillor Rowe, would you like to speak to the motion?
Mr Mayor, everybody knows that I have been a long-term councillor and that Cranbourne has always been my area of operation. Cranbourne has suffered, shall we say, lack of development and really does need to give it a project such as this, which is an iconic project, to actually come to Cranbourne. And I think that this is an opportunity since the last council was in operation. This is the first opportunity that we've had to put a very decent project in there that's going to be of value to disability, to people who want somewhere to go. It's going to take the place of the library as it stands. It will also be an iconic building that will give the people of Cranbourne a great deal of pleasure and the fact that such a building could be built basically in the heart of the Cranbourne Township. And it's it's a long time coming, and I'm pleased that it's the first project that I get to offer up to my colleagues. It's time Cranbourne was rewarded, and certainly had this project proceed.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Thanks for that contribution. Councillor Dazon, as seconder, would you like to speak to the motion?
Through you, Mayor, I'd like to echo Councillor Rowe and would like to say that as one of the Cranbourne councillors, I strongly support the Cranbourne Hub project and the positive impact it could bring in all ways, including, among other things, economically, socially, and many others. That said, I also acknowledge the concerns raised about parking and pedestrian access to the site. And I do thank Councillor Rowe for putting forward this alternate motion, and I support receiving a report that explores these issues further, and hopefully it will help identify ways in which we can address the issues moving forward.
Thank you, Councillor Dazon. And now speaking in opposition to the motion, Councillor Eves.
Thank you, Mayor. I fully support what Councillor Rowe has said about the project. It's much needed in our area and will improve the outlook of the whole place. I do not agree with the amendment, and that's the only thing I don't agree with. The old library building was next to derelict, and it would cost more for us to renovate than it would to build a new community hub. No problem there. The proposed building site was carefully selected from a range of council-owned land parcels with council officer and community input. It's on a block of land which we're not going to have to pay for. I suggested an area in my ward. It wasn't really suitable. It definitely wasn't suitable. So it's cost effective there. The proposed community hub is to be centrally located within Casey's shopping centre, so there's easy access for pedestrians. It's next to the bus terminal, so it's easy access to public transport and retirement shuttle buses. My problem is the amendment mandates a report in 2026 before council plans for the hub will be finalised. And it also mandates that report before the state government's treatment of the high street is formalised. So I don't see how we can actually recommend additional capital investment or budget for it when plans have not been finalised. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Eves. Also speaking in opposition, Councillor Crowther.
Through you, Mayor, I wish to oppose the motion for the Cranbourne Hub in the Lyle Street location. I agree with the need for the hub. I agree that we need to revitalise Cranbourne, and I do welcome the investment. However, after many conversations with the community, I don't feel that the Lyle Street location will achieve the project's goals. There's currently no connection between the hub and the high street. It's not going to improve the amenity of high street because it's barely even visible at this point. I'm also concerned about the lack of accessible parking. In both community consultations, over 80% of respondents said they would drive to the hub, and we just haven't accommodated this in the design. The hub doesn't just service Cranbourne, it services residents from the whole of southern Casey who don't have public transport options and rely on cars. We need to accommodate our southern residents. Due to the lack of parking on site at the hub and minimal street parking in Lyle Street, we're relying on Centro car parking, or we're pushing cars onto residential streets which are not designed to be car parks. I think about the mums attending for story time and struggling with their kids on the street, trying to get their kids into prams, crossing lots of roads and walking 200 plus metres to reach the hub. I fear it's just going to be too difficult for our community to access the hub, and we've investing a lot in this project. Lastly, the feedback I receive from high street traders is they want more parking, and with the removal of this car park, again we are pushing more cars onto residential streets. This has been a difficult decision. I understand the officer's vision and hopes for this project, but after talking to many residents, the community does not support this site. I urge my fellow councillors to think about the accessibility of this site.
Thank you, Councillor Crowther. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. As other councillors have alluded, we have had lots of discussions. We've had a bus tour to the site. We've been taken through the decision-making from day one as into why this site was recommended and the financial implications if we choose not to go ahead with this. And I do have weighed up the concerns. The community also very much want active transport, and as a whole, we want to try and reduce our reliance on cars, which is a huge task and it involves a lot of infrastructure work. It's important that when we implement new projects that we provide access to all members of the community. Access involves physical access such as public transport, footpaths, bike paths, laneways, roads. It also involves psychological access in terms of safety, both real and perceived. Both the reports and the scouting of the proposed location really highlights the necessity to improve the physical access and community safety around the site, and that is why I support this recommendation, because it ingrains that as an integral part of the report and acknowledges the real concerns we have and looks for ways that will be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? No other councillors? Look, I'll make a contribution. As Councillor Ross has said, we did go on our bus tour, but I've actually been down to the site 3 times now. I think twice with Councillor Crowther and also maybe 4 actually, also on 2 bus tours and also myself just to see through it, because this is a significant investment that council will be making if this is approved. And through that time that I've been there, I've really got to see the surrounding streets and take into account there are concerns around parking and around access, but I think the work that's been done by officers in the assessment and also that will be done with the amendment that Councillor Rowe has proposed, I'm confident that this can be a good outcome, and I do wholeheartedly believe that this site and this hub does belong in central Cranbourne. I just think that is the place that we want to have these services. We want to have libraries, we want to have our customer service, which will be incorporated into this building, only approximately 100 metres away from where the existing customer service is. So it is very close to our existing Casey customer service site. I've also heard concerns from residents and from Councillor Crowther about the situation, where this site is situated, abutting the main strip, and having looked at other developments in similar councils, I think there's some excellent work that can be done to incorporate that into the high street. I think we just need to look long term, and that's why I'm supporting this vision and this proposal, because there is a fantastic structure plan for the high street of Cranbourne. It will come about over 5-10 years, maybe even decades, but it's a long-term vision that will see us revitalise High Street, and I'm confident that this can be the jewel in the crown and the public space that we need to revitalise that area and really get it moving. So I will be supporting this motion. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Dowling, would you like a right of reply? Oh, sorry, no. Councillor Rowe, would you like a right of reply as the mover? Did you want to make any further contributions?
Only briefly, Mr Mayor, and thanks for the opportunity. I can only reiterate the importance of this to Cranbourne, and it is going to be a long-term project, and it's if it gets pushed out and pushed out and pushed out, so does the price go up and up and up. And I think the officers have done a fantastic job in working out the costing of this particular project. It's well within council budgets, and the land is council land, and it is owned, and we don't have to buy it. We don't have to knock down buildings from along the main street. This can be built, and provide a long-term, decade after decade benefit to Cranbourne.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. On that note, we'll now move to a vote for the amended motion as on the screen. Can I ask councillors in favour of the motion on the screen to raise their hand? I'll just ask you to raise your hand because we do note down individual votes. So if I can get a confirmation, I'll read them out actually. Yep, so Councillor Pereira, Councillor Dazon, Councillor Dowling, Councillor Ross, Councillor Rowe, Councillor Walter, Councillor Perry, Councillor Ambrose and Councillor Cooman. Lower your hands please, all those against. Councillor Taylor, Councillor Eves, Councillor Crowther. Thank you, councillors. That has been passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now move to item 4.4, which is the Connected Libraries Annual Budget and Corporate Plans, noting Councillor Dowling's conflict of interest but no material conflict. He can remain in the chamber. And we have Ms Emily Clark, Manager of Creative Communities, to speak to the report. Ms Clark.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, councillors. This report details the proposed Connected Libraries Budget 2025 to 2026, the new Library Plan 2025 to 2029, and the Strategic Resource Plan 2025 to 2029 that is presented for Council for approval. The Connected Libraries Facilities Development Plan 2023 to 2027, which is updated this year in 2025, is presented to Council for noting. These key strategic documents meet compliance with the Library Agreement and provide a plan for the delivery of library services to meet Connected Libraries' strategic objectives, and were endorsed on the 16th of April 2025 by the Board of KC Cardinia Library Corporation, CCLC, trading as Connected Libraries. This report also provides an update on the transition of the library service to a beneficial enterprise in line with requirements under the Local Government Act 2020. The new company was registered with ASIC in February 2025 and received charity status with the Australian Charities and Not-for-Profits Commission, ACNC, in April 2025. There is a target operational commencement date of the 1st of July 2025. Connected Libraries and council officers are currently working collaboratively to complete all other steps required in the transition process. This includes transferring all existing contracts, agreements and staff to the new entity and subsequently winding up CCLC. A report will be presented later this year to endorse commencement of the liquidation process of CCLC and appointment of a liquidator. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Clark. Councillors, are there any questions for Ms Clark in relation to this report? No questions. I will now move to the motion as presented on the screen. Councillors, have we got a mover and a seconder for the motion? Councillor Dowling, moving. Have we got a seconder? Councillor Pereira. Thank you. Any councillors in opposition to the motion? No, no in opposition. I'll now move to debate. Councillor Dowling, as the mover, would you like to speak to the motion?
Through you, Mayor. Connected Libraries is running, has a very successful footprint on its strategy going forward and has some of the best services that can be offered as far as libraries go. So we have the opportunity going forward to grow and include other libraries, and the membership that we have at the moment is in excess of 100,000 people that average going to the library more than 8 times each per year. So it's growing and it's a successful model, and I'm sure it's just going to be more and more successful as we go on.
Thank you, Councillor Dowling. Councillor Pereira, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, it's right. I think it's self-explanatory. I'm fully in support of this.
Thanks, Councillor Pereira.
Yep, thanks.
Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Ross.
Hello, sorry. I just briefly wanted to endorse the fabulous work that our library does, and what a pleasure it is every time to go in and use it. So I'm very happy to support this motion. I've always said that I've never felt always feel really rich walking out of a library holding all these books. So if you're one of our many residents who hasn't been to a library or doesn't have a library card, please go along and support us.
Thanks, Councillor Ross. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? No further speakers. I might put this now to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you, councillors. That's passed unanimously. Thank you, Ms Clark. And we will now move to item 4.5, which is the Model Code of Conduct. And we have Ms Chloe Casey, Manager of Communication and Corporate Governance, to speak to the report. Thank you, Ms Casey.
Good evening, councillors. This report is seeking to revoke the existing Councillor Code of Conduct and endorse the Model Councillor Code of Conduct. The Model Code of Conduct was legislated by the State Government in October of 2024 and aims to ensure councillors uphold integrity, trust and effectiveness consistently across the sector. While councillors were required to comply with the Model Code of Conduct when it came into operation late last year, we must seek to revoke the previous Casey Councillor Code of Conduct through a council decision. Included as attachments to this report is a copy of the Casey Councillor Code of Conduct being revoked and the Model Code of Conduct that now applies to all Victorian councils. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Casey. Any questions, councillors? I have a question, Ms Casey. Just in terms of, are there any wasn't quite clear, are there any substantive changes from our existing code of conduct to this model code of conduct, or was it an exact replica or similar?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, for your question. We provided feedback last year when the state government opened the consultation. The themes that are consistent in the Model Code of Conduct did cover what we had in our Casey Councillor Code of Conduct, so we have done a comparison and we're pretty comfortable that it has been covered off in the Model Code.
Thank you, Ms Casey. Councillors, no further questions. We've got a motion on the screen. Would anyone like to move and second the motion as presented? Councillor Rowe moving, seconding Councillor Reeves. Thank you. Anyone in opposition of the motion? None in opposition. I'll now open to the floor to Councillor Rowe. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor? Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Councillor Reeves, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just like to encourage all of us councillors to read and comply with the Code of Conduct. Sort of is a perfect model of behaviour that I'd like to see all of us following. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? I'll make a quick contribution. I think this obviously is essentially, we already have this code of conduct and what's within it in place, and I think it's important to note that given what council's been through in the past, that we do maintain kind of best practice, and we are doing that. And I'd like to acknowledge the work that's been done prior to us being here to really improving our policies and ensuring that we are the benchmark and we're consistent with the model codes that are in place. I'd also just like to note for residents, and obviously councillors are aware that there's currently work being done on model governance rules for all councils across Victoria, and we intend to make changes in accordance with that later in the year once that those are released by the state government, just to ensure that at all levels we are, I guess, the leading light and showing the way of how councillors should conduct themselves. So I'll be supporting this motion. Thank you. Any further contributions? No, I'll put this to a vote now. The motion is on the screen. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you, councillors. That's carried unanimously. All right, we'll move on now to our final report, officer report, which is 4.6, contract extension C2000431, hard rubbish collection, dumped rubbish collection and litter picking services. We have Mr Michael Jansen, Manager of Sustainability and Waste, to speak to the report. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Councillors, this report seeks to extend our contract CT431 by a period of 1 year up until the 30th of June 2026. The contract provides for hard rubbish collection, dumped rubbish collection and litter picking services across the municipality. The incumbent, WM Waste Management Services, have provided a high quality service and achieved high community satisfaction through the provision of their service. They've been innovative and in fact introduced the first electric waste collection vehicles into Victoria under this contract. The extension will allow us to build into the next contract some structural and operational improvements to the provision of these services, and for that reason we're seeking to extend the contract for a period of 1 year. The service has been value for money, and the expected expenditure is within our projected budget for next financial year.
Thank you for that, Mr Jansen. Any questions for Mr Jansen, councillors? Councillor Pereira.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I've just got a question. This is a really valuable service, obviously. I'm just wondering if there's anything council could do to try to discourage the dumping. I mean, there's so much dumping of rubbish everywhere that is a cost to council, which obviously flows on to ratepayers. A lot of people do the right thing, they're not dumping, but there are a lot of people that have no consideration, they don't understand the consequences of this. Is there any other actions that council is taking or able to take, maybe putting up signs, no dumping, or, anything else we can use as a deterrent to try to reduce the incidence of these? Thank you.
Mr Jansen.
Yes, thanks for the question, Councillor Pereira. Yes, there are a number of activities that we take in the dumped rubbish space. We're currently doing an internal review on how some of those services are provided, but the range of activities we take include enforcement as well as education and the provision of hardware services to give people other options. There's no additional cost to using the hard waste for an individual. They get 2 per year. It's covered under the waste services charge. So we do try to encourage them to use that rather than dumping. But dumping is a very complex space. It's a problem right across the state. We are seeking through the MAV further state assistance and coordination in tackling dumped waste. But as I said, we are implementing some improvements in how we deliver it, and a part of the reason we wanted to extend this contract was so that we could build those into the next contract.
Thank you, Mr Jansen. Any further questions, councillors? No further questions. We've got the motion on the screen. Do we have a mover and seconder for this? Councillor Pereira moving, and a seconder, Councillor Dazon. Sorry, Councillor Dowling. Councillor Dazon second. Anyone in opposition to this motion? No councillors in opposition. Now we'll move to the floor debate. Councillor Pereira, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I do thank the officers for what they do in this space. It's a very complicated space, and it is an expensive space. I know we try to keep our costs down as much as possible, but this is what it is, and we have to have someone do the services, and we are grateful that we've got good companies that work with us to provide these services for us, to try to keep Casey clean. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. Councillor Dazon, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'd just like to echo Councillor Pereira and would like to thank the officers for all the work that you do. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Dazon. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Reeves.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to say I'm happy to see this contract extended because I'm very happy with the service we receive in my household. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Councillor Dowling, was that your hand raised to speak?
Yes, through you, Mayor, thank you. I'd just like to remind everyone about lithium batteries. They do cause fires when they're dumped in hard rubbish, and when hard rubbish is collected, and in general rubbish. It's caused fires in the council vehicles that come, or the contractors' vehicles that come around to collect our waste every week. And we need to really look at somewhere that we can let everyone know to to drop their lithium batteries off at, possibly a centre like where we recycle our bottles for 10 cents a return. Maybe that collection point could be a good place to have the lithium batteries taken to. But everyone I've asked about what do you do with your batteries, 9 times out of 10 it's throw them in the bin. They're not sure where to take them. Some people say Office Works, some people say Coles, Safeway do it. There's no direct place that anyone can rattle off the top of their head to take lithium batteries, and they are becoming a problem and an increasing problem.
Thank you for that contribution, Councillor Dowling. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Ambrose.
Through you, Mayor, thank you for the report to the officers. My Calora residents have always expressed how much pride they've got in our ward, and also the fact that we were getting this service, and I am for it because it does support the clean-up and also the rubbish that we do have around. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Ambrose. Any other councillors to speak to the motion? I'll make a quick comment just from a financial perspective. Obviously, this is commercial in confidence, so these documents aren't made public, but through the briefings, I'm confident that this was the best financial decision. It's a contract extension that we've exercised, an option that council has exercised, and in the current commercial environment, I think it's a wise move to do this, so I'll be supporting the motion. Councillor Pereira, to wrap up.
Yes, thank you. I did want to highlight the lithium batteries is a nightmare, and we do have collection points, Safeway, our local Safeway. A lot of people don't know that. And it is a concern because these batteries can actually ignite just through heat like that. So I don't know if that's a great place to put them in a shopping centre, but education, again, getting this out to the community. How do we do this? We need some kind of, I don't know, maybe social media campaigns or something, because there are a lot of people that still don't know what to do with them. And it's going to be a massive problem. It is a big problem that's going to get worse. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. And obviously that's in the context that this is an added cost to council and ratepayers. When those batteries do explode, they do have significant clean-up costs, which is covered in our waste contracts. So thank you for your contributions, councillors. We'll now move to the motion for a vote. All those in favour of the motion on the screen, please raise your hand. Thank you, councillors. That's unanimously passed. Thank you. And that concludes the section 4 of our agenda, which is the officer reports. And we will now move on to item 5, which is consideration of reports of committees. And tonight we have one committee, so the Western Port Biosphere CLC Committee meeting was held on the 24th of April 2025. Councillor Dowling, who is our delegate on that committee, sorry, Councillor Crowther. Do you wish to provide an update, Councillor Crowther?
Through you, Mayor, yes I do.
Thanks.
I'm the KC Council representative on the Western Port Biosphere Councillor Committee. Some of our community might be surprised to hear that we even have a coastal region. I see that pop up quite a bit online. But we actually have a worldwide significant coastal area recognised through the United Nations UNESCO program. And last week, the councillor group and the executive team, we travelled on a bus around to the coastal areas to understand more about the significance of the area. The committee comprises of members from the Casey, Cardinia, Bass, Coast and Mornington councils, and we meet, collaborate and share ideas between the councils and also report to the Western Port Biosphere Board. Our goal is to create a strategic vision for Western Port, and we also have discussed the value of combining together for advocacy rather than each individual council advocating individually to the state government. We're calling on the state government to establish a Western Port strategic framework, just like Port Phillip already has, and I'll keep you updated after our next meeting.
Thank you for that, Councillor Crowther. Appreciate it. We did have a bus tour that saw some of our coastal region, which all the councillors got to, so we're all well aware of the importance of that landscape in the southern part of Casey. So thank you for that contribution. On that note, we'll accept that report and we'll move now to item 6, which is petitions. So there was one petition received for this council meeting, which was flagged earlier in the item regarding the Cranbourne Hub. And the title of the petition is to reopen consultation on the Cranbourne Community Hub. This matter was considered and an outcome of 4.3 in tonight's meeting. The recommendation for this petition is that the petition be referred to the Chief Executive Officer to respond to the head petitioner and provide a response to the matters raised in the petition. The petition was submitted with 39 signatories. Do we have a councillor who would like to table that petition? Councillor Rowe, thank you for that. So we will note that petition is tabled. Thank you. All right, we'll now move to item 7, which is public questions. Oh, sorry. Oh, I've got...
Okay, that's all right.
Sorry, I've got my agenda here, has got 7, so public questions. We'll move on to that. So before we begin, I just do want to acknowledge and thank all of the community members who've taken the time to submit your questions for this evening's meeting. I note a number of you are joining us tonight here at the meeting, so thank you for taking the time to come. There are some important topics obviously raised in the following questions, and some of which are quite technical in nature. This means that the responses often quote relevant legislation, procedures or governance rules, and whilst officers have done their best to keep responses simple and in easy to understand terms, some of the questions do require that technical expertise. So please, thank you for your patience as we work through these, and we appreciate the feedback from the community in the way that these questions are being answered, and it's been taken on board by officers when responding. So on that note, I'll refer over to the CEO, Mr. Glenn Patterson, to work the way through the public questions. Thank you, Mr. Patterson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We've received a number of questions tonight. Firstly, in relation to the waste transfer station. Questions received from Maria Pintorti, Anthony O'Hara, Sarah Sherlock, Gary Page, Ruth Darley, James Rivers, Sue Lanigan and Peter Duncanson are addressed in the recently released statement available on Council's website, which I'll shortly ask you, Mayor, to read out in full for completeness. Other questions relating to the waste transfer station will be answered individually. Over to you, Mr Mayor, to respond.
Thank you, Mr Patterson. So this is a statement that was put out on our website earlier this week, and we just received correspondence from a number of groups and thought it would be helpful to provide a latest update following the EPA decision. So I will read this out now. It is rather long, but I think it's good to have it on the record, and for also those in the gallery and those watching to note some of the work that's been done. So just in terms of our advocacy efforts since we've come to Council, since the election in November 2024, both myself as Mayor and councillors, we've been actively advocating on behalf of the community regarding concerns about the proposed waste transfer station in Hampton Park. This includes, but it's not limited to, making multiple submissions and representations to the Environmental Protection Authority, the EPA, and also the Victorian Government through various ministers and MPs, and supporting a notice of motion in March 2025 led by Councillor Lynette Pereira from the Rivergum Ward to advocate on behalf of the Hampton Park community and surrounding suburbs in relation to this proposal. Then in April 2025, as many residents have noted, the EPA made the decision to refuse the development licence application by Veolia. The EPA determined that the proposed waste transfer station posed unacceptable risks to human health and the environment, primarily from odour and noise emissions due to its close proximity to residential homes. Council acknowledges the significant community interest in this proposal, as well as the statements of state and federal MPs in relation to the EPA decision. Moving now to Council's roles and obligations, in October 2024, prior to the return of councillors, Council approved a planning permit for the waste transfer station as part of its statutory role as the responsible planning authority. This role involves assessing planning applications based on relevant planning laws. Council is also a member of the South Eastern Metropolitan Advanced Waste Processing Group of 9 councils. In July 2024, prior to the election of and the return of councillors, Casey Council signed a waste supply agreement with the Maryvale Energy Energy from Waste facility. So in terms of next step, and I think this is important, we've given a lot of consideration as councillors and received a lot of advice. The EPA has advised that the council that Veolia has appealed its decision to the at the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal, VCAT. A hearing is now scheduled for the 11th, 12th and 14th and 15th of August 2025. Council's statutory role as the responsible planning authority limits its influence over the VCAT hearing process. Due to Council's dual roles, which I've just outlined, and the obligations as the responsible planning authority and as a member of SEMWAP and the contract that's been signed as part of that, Council will not be taking any further action while the EPA VCAT review is occurring, which will take place in August. If VCAT upholds the EPA's refusal of the development licence, as they've determined, then the planning permit that was previously issued prior to the return of councillors will be redundant and the waste transfer station cannot be constructed. We look forward to providing further updates to the community as they become available. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, the next question has been submitted by Malcolm Sharp about the Berwick Springs Lake renaming. In November 2022, officers from the City of Casey Landscape Design and Construction and connected community teams stated they are responsible for the management of physical infrastructure at Berwick Springs Lake and indicated they are comfortable with the renaming project, including installation of plaques, signs and benches at the site. Who gave the authority for this commitment? Mr Mayor, the Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Council officers attended meetings with the Department of Families, Fairness and Housing and Melbourne Water. The discussions at these meetings were mainly about the process of community and stakeholder engagement, which for this project fall under the responsibility of the state government. Council officers did not provide any commitment or agreement in relation to the naming of the renaming project or supporting the management of any physical infrastructure which may result from the renaming project.
Malcolm Sharp has also submitted the next question, also related to the Berwick Springs renaming. The Department of Fairness, Families and Housing Geographic Names Victoria, Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action, DECA, Ambulance Victoria, Emergency Services Telecommunications Authority, Melbourne Water and the City of Casey met in July 2023 and the City of Casey agreed to lead the renaming process. Who authorised Casey officers to give this commitment? I am aware this commitment was withdrawn on the 11th of December 2023. And again, the Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
No commitment or agreement was provided by the City of Casey to lead the renaming process. At the meeting in July 2023, it was suggested that since the City of Casey had more experience with naming proposals, it could be tasked with community consultation and submitting the formal proposal to Geographic Names Victoria. After consideration, Council sent a letter to the Department of Families, Fairness and Housing advising that Casey will not lead the renaming process as this was not a council project or decision to be made.
The next question is submitted by Maria Pintordi about the ministerial call-in and council's position. Given the EPA's decisions and widespread public opposition, will council formally request the Minister for Planning to call in and revoke the planning permit to protect the community? If not, why is the council unwilling to support intervention in the public interest? And the Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you. We have confirmed that the Minister for Planning does not have the power to call in or revoke the planning permit. Council's other advocacy on this matter was outlined by the Mayor in Public Question 11 on the 15th of April 2025.
The next question is from Anthony O'Hara about rejected waste transfer station development licence. Given that the EPA has rejected the development licence for a Hampton Park waste transfer station, does the City of Casey, any other council or the South East Metropolitan Advanced Waste Processing Group have a contingency plan for an alternative location or area for the waste transfer station? If so, what region has been or could be considered? Again, the Acting Director for City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you. The question of whether an EPA development licence will be issued to Veolia is yet to be decided by VCAT. No other location for a transfer station has been proposed to Council.
The next question is from Sarah Sherlock about the breach of general environmental duty. Has Council obtained independent legal advice confirming it is not in breach of its general environmental duty under the Environment Act 2017 by continuing to support a permit for a development now deemed unsafe by the EPA? If so, will this advice be made public? The Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you. We are confident we have met our obligations, and due to legal privilege, we will not be making legal advice obtained by Council public.
The next question has been received from Yen Truong about community safety concerns. Why was the planning permit for the WTS approved despite clear inconsistency with clauses 12.01-1S and 13.04-1S of the Planning Policy Framework and the Municipal Planning Strategy, which prioritise biodiversity protection, safe use of contaminated land and environmental sustainability? Given the EPA's assessment of the site as a human health risk, how does this decision align with Council's obligations under the Planning and Environment Act 1987 to ensure a safe and sustainable land use? The Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you. Our officers considered biodiversity objectives when making a decision on the planning permit. The permit contains conditions relating to the protection of areas of native vegetation and provision of offsets for the removal of native vegetation, as well as addressing landfill gas risk. You can request a copy of our full assessment of the planning permit application, including consideration of these matters via our governance team.
The next question is from Shannon Lynch about the Hampton Park Waste Transfer Station approval. I am seeking clarification regarding the approval of the Waste Transfer Station in Hampton Park. EPA Victoria has now refused the development licence due to unacceptable health risks, particularly from odour and noise. This supports strong community opposition raised throughout the process. Given the community concern and EPA findings, could Council please explain the basis for approval, how risks were assessed, the consideration of public objections, and whether planning processes reviewed? And again, the Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you. Again, Council is confident that we have met all the requirements in our consideration of the planning permit application for the waste transfer station. Again, you can request a copy of our full assessment of the planning permit application from our governance team.
The next question has been received from Danielle George about the greyhound off-leash area in Casey. Is there any ability for the Council to investigate establishing a greyhound exclusive off-leash facility in Casey? With the recent announcement of the redevelopment of the Cranbourne Greyhound racing track, if we're going to insist as a council area on participating in animal abuse as sport while other countries ban it and shut down racetracks, it stands to reason that the victims rescued are owed an opportunity at a normal pet life. The Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you for your question. It's important to note that Council does not have a role with respect to greyhound racing activities at the Cranbourne Racecourse. There are no plans for Council to build a greyhound-specific dog-friendly space. Casey does, however, offer a range of spaces designed to accommodate all dogs. These include dog-friendly spaces, dog off-leash areas and dog on-lead spaces, all of which are listed and mapped on the Council's website.
The next question is from Belinda Newey about animal registration. What is being provided for our cat registration fee? It's not necessary to charge an ongoing fee once, when registered, the animal we could be sent a box to tick via email to state we will still have an animal. If cats are inside, that are what's being provided. No offers from Council to assist in cat runs. We get fined if they are out, and who pays for that? We pay rates that should be enough. You don't charge fees for kids using parks, but claim this for dog registration. What is the breakdown of where it goes? The Acting Director, Community Life will respond.
Thank you for your question. Councils are required to operate under the Domestic Animal Act 1994. The Act requires cat and dog owners to register their pets with Council. Registrations are an annual process that are due for renewal on the 10th of April every year. The Act also requires councils to determine costs for new registration and registration renewals each year. The revenue generated through animal registration fees is only a contribution towards the total cost of our animal management services and programs, which include a number of benefits to animal owners, including animal safety, education and support services.
The next question is from Helen Owen about the Max Pawsey Playground. Love seeing an upgrade for the Max Pawsey Playground. Will there be a public toilet installed? The Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you for your question. There are no plans, unfortunately, to include public toilets in the playground upgrade. The Max Pawsey Reserve Master Plan does identify the need for toilets to be provided as part of a redeveloped scorer shed to be developed in the medium term and subject to funding. There are a few nearby public toilet options if needed, including Bundle Place and Westfield Shopping Centre. Both have facilities within a short walk.
The next question is from Reto Frehofer about College can expand, but we can't subdivide our acre. College Drive subdivisions are blocked by the DPO1 overlay. We would add maximum 10 more houses. College Drive has sewer, water, electricity, gas and traffic light and an ELC, as well as a P1 to P12 college, up to 1,000 students. How come the school can expand each year on year, but us adding 10 more houses is governed by the DPO1, even though we are all on the same street? The Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you. Our officers are currently reviewing the Narre South Part A development plan, which applies to College Drive and adjoining school, the Waverley Christian College, as part of a broader review of our development plans in Casey. The school has an approved staged master plan enabling the school to develop over time until fully developed. College Drive was originally built to cater for the fully developed school and 10 residential 4,000 metres squared allotments. Further council investigation is foreshadowed to ensure existing infrastructure and services along College Drive can support additional subdivision down to 2,000 square metre allotments.
The next question is also from Rito Frehofer about all services and traffic light, but can't subdivide our acre. Council's response on the 18th of February 2025 to my questions then was that DP01 will be reviewed with priority this year. Same advice was given to us last year, that is, we'll have an answer by the end of 2024. Why are we not excluded from the DPO1, even though College Drive has sewer, water, electricity, gas and a traffic light? What guarantee do we have that there will be an answer this year? Why does this take multiple years? And again, the Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you. Council officers are currently reviewing the Narre South Part A development plan, which applies to College Drive. Whether College Drive can support or not support further subdivision will be determined through recommendations provided to the Council. We acknowledge your frustrations at the delay and we are conscious to provide clear direction on the future development opportunities for the Narre South Part A development plan area as a result of our current work.
The next question is submitted by Carla Frehofer about others can subdivide and will cause more traffic issues on intersections than us. We want to subdivide too. The envelope, Shrives, Pound, Narre Cranbourne, Fullard, Centre Roads, has 1+ acre block sizes. Most of those can subdivide without issue. College Drive can't. College Drive has sewer, water, electricity, gas and a traffic light. The other blocks in the envelope that are not covered by DPO1 can subdivide, even though they could add 100 odd houses and the related traffic to the single road intersections they have with Shrives Road and Narre Cranbourne Road. So why can they subdivide and why can't we? And again, the Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you for the question. The area between Shrives Road and the Narre South Part A development plan area has a range of lot sizes. Most of the lots were created at the minimum lot size and cannot be subdivided any further under the current planning controls. Council's housing strategy recognised the need for the Narre South Part A development plan area to be investigated to identify opportunities for further subdivision, subject to the capacity of existing infrastructure and services. We are currently reviewing the infrastructure and service capacity.
The next question from Carla Frehofer is, if development is included in planning scheme, why is it still in the DPO1 included? College Drive was developed after the DPO1 was put in. It was even shown in the planning scheme and as such should be excluded from any overlay since it was developed with sewer, water, electricity, gas and a traffic light. Why can't College Drive be excluded from the DPO1 overlay? Again, the Acting Director in City Planning Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you. Again, we are currently reviewing the Narre South Part A development plan, which applies to College Drive. College Drive has been fully developed to 4,000 square metre allotments, and further council investigation is required to ensure existing services and infrastructure can support additional subdivision down to 2,000 square metres.
Next question has been submitted by Jackie Horn about the Cranbourne Golf Course. With the sale of the golf course to the Browns Group, will Council ensure the trees and established nature be protected? Will some natural space be left? With all the homes being built, we lack recreational and natural areas. Does Council agree that the trees need to stay and the environment protected from being completely bulldozed? The Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you for your question. Council is working with the developer to maximise the retention of the existing tree canopy cover and the natural spaces in which these trees are located. However, this does need to be balanced by the zoning of the land to accommodate housing. Not all trees are able to be kept. Additional planting, however, will be achieved throughout the site as part of the development. It is also envisaged that these areas where the trees are retained will be open space able to be enjoyed by the broader community.
The next question is submitted by Ian Wood about the Cranbourne Community Hub. I believe the Council's proposed location in Lyle Street is the wrong choice due to safety concerns. Will the Council open up again community consultation and consider other locations? And again, the Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you for your question. Due to the complexity involved in selecting suitable sites, the location of community infrastructure is not subject to community consultation. The Cranbourne Hub project has been shaped by a comprehensive range of assessments, including those related to the community. The recommendation remains to proceed with the hub at 1 to 3 Lyle Street, and community consultation will not be reopened to consider alternative locations.
Next question is from Gary Page about 286 Hallam Road, Hampton Park, cultural sensitivity. Delegate report for PA 23/0694, Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Sections map, highlights cultural sensitivity still exists on 286 Hallam Road, Hampton Park, see purple top right. At some point, the Council will have to fund an investigation under the Aboriginal Heritage Act for a Cultural Heritage Management Plan, CHMP. Who determines the actual area of the CHMP and severity of the limitations on active public open space developments permitted on the 286 Hallam Road site? Again, the Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you. A CHMP is required when a high-impact activity is planned in an area of cultural heritage sensitivity. These terms are defined in the Aboriginal Heritage Regulations 2018, and these cultural heritage sensitive areas are mapped. If a planning permit is required for a proposed development within an area of cultural heritage sensitivity, Council is responsible for deciding if a CHMP is required. If required, it must be prepared by a heritage advisor, and the relevant registered Aboriginal party must be given the opportunity to evaluate the CHMP, a process to which Council has no role in considering or approving a CHMP.
The next question is from Coralie Broben about meeting attendance. The 80 places offered to attend the council meeting, 0.0002% of the City of Casey's population, is dismal. What will Council do to ensure more residents can attend the public gallery or have online attendees' questions answered in the meeting? The Director, Customer and Corporate Services will respond.
Thank you for your question. To better manage public attendance and ensure the health, safety and wellbeing of the public following a disruptive meeting in February, Council has introduced a new registration process for those wanting to attend a council meeting. To ensure everyone's safety and comfort, we have set a limit of 80 seated attendees in the public gallery. This number is based on the room's layout, which takes into account important occupational health and safety and emergency management requirements, such as clear access and exit points. Everyone who submits a public question receives a response directly. All responses are also recorded in the official council meeting minutes, which become available on our website following the meeting.
The next question is from Anthony Tassone about the South East Council Climate Change Alliance, SECA. Since last year, Frankston City Council and City of Greater Dandenong have left the South East Council Climate Change Alliance, SECA. It's been reported that SECA membership is $75,000 per year. On May 6, Star News reported that the City of Casey will remain part of SECA despite neighbouring councils withdrawing. What are the annual costs for participation in SECA? How does participation in SECA benefit ratepayers? And what consultation has been undertaken with residents to validate staying in? The Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you. The City of Casey sees benefit in a regional approach that allows SECA to leverage funding, including from the private sector, so that it can support councils in tackling the effect of climate change on behalf of its residents. The City of Casey contributed $40,682 in annual membership fee in the 2024-2025 financial year. In addition to this, Casey has contributed $75,000 towards a range of climate-related projects.
The next question from Anthony Tassone relates to purple glass-only recycling bins. The Age reported on the 26th of April 2025 that about 30 Victorian councils have banded together to try to stop the mandated rollout of glass-only purple bins across the state, arguing the $129 million recycling scheme will force a record increase in waste disposal charges to households. One of these councils is the Cardinia Shire Council. Can the City of Casey confirm whether it has joined these advocacy efforts to oppose the introduction of the purple bin? If not, why not? And the Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you. Council advocated to the state government to oppose the introduction of the dedicated glass bin, including making submissions, writing directly to members of Parliament and ministers, and supporting the Municipal Association of Victoria's campaign. The introduction of a dedicated glass service is now required under the Circular Economy, Waste Reduction and Recycling Act 2021, with significant penalties for non-compliance.
The next question is from Ray Darley about the waste transfer station. Community trust and governance. What accountability will Council take for breaching community trust by supporting a project the EPA has rejected? The Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Council officers reviewed the application for the waste transfer station in accordance with the applicable legislation and planning controls. We are confident that we have met our obligations.
The next question is from Brianna Selling about health risk to vulnerable populations. What steps has Council taken to assess the waste transfer station's health impacts on children, elderly residents and culturally diverse communities nearby? There are many schools, childcare centres and care facilities in close proximity to the site. The Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you for the question. You can access a copy of our assessment of the planning permit application via our governance team. This includes details of how we considered buffers for surrounding sensitive uses.
The next question is from Brenton Selling about misleading community consultation on WTS. Does Council accept that most residents, including non-English-speaking communities, were not meaningfully consulted about the WTS? And again, the Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you. The Hampton Park Hill Development Plan was adopted in July 2023 after community consultation. We understand the importance of providing accessible information to our culturally and linguistically diverse community and offer interpretation and translation services to support access to important council information. It is not known how many residents access this service in relation to the July to August 2022 consultation period for the Hampton Hill Development Plan. The planning permit application for the waste transfer station was exempt from public notice.
The next question from Brenton Selling about the lack of CRG influence on WTS decisions. Why was Council not acted on the consistent concerns raised by the Community Reference Group, CRG, about the WTS proposal? The Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you. Council officers attended the Community Reference Group and provide advice to the group appropriately. Views of the Community Reference Group are well understood by Council.
The next question is from Antonietta Peel about the waste transfer station. Does the CEO, Glenn Patterson of Casey Council, a corporation, consider concerns, needs and interests of Casey community before profit? If so, why did the CEO make a deal with Veolia Waste Transfer Station prior to the council elections? And the Mayor will respond.
Thanks, Mr Patterson. The City of Casey and the CEO will not derive a profit from the Hampton Park Waste Transfer Station. In July 2024, prior to the election of and return of councillors, councils, including the City of Casey, formally resolved to enter into this 25-year waste agreement following a multi-year procurement process facilitated by the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action.
The next question from Antonietta Peel about the waste transfer station. Can you explain the benefits of the waste transfer station to Hampton Park community in regards to their health, well-being and prosperity? And the Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
The planning application for the waste transfer station considered issues required under the relevant legislation. This did not include a list of benefits to the community in regards to their health, well-being and prosperity, as they are not relevant planning considerations. If you would like further information about our assessment, you can request a copy of the full assessment of the planning permit application from the governance team.
Next question from Patricia Rivers about failure to apply precautionary principle. Why hasn't Council applied the precautionary principle to the WTS, considering these serious environmental and health warnings? And the Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Council has met its responsibilities in considering environmental risk. We referred the permit application to the EPA and conditions on the permit to address odour, noise and landfill gas risk. A copy of our report considering these matters is available via the governance team.
The next question from Patricia Rivers is about odour and air quality management. What evidence can Council provide that ongoing odour issues from the landfill won't worsen with the addition of the WTS? And again, the Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you. Odour management is controlled through the development licence. As part of EPA's technical assessment of the application, EPA odour specialists have assessed the proposed odour controls. Now that the EPA has refused the development licence application, VCAT will be making a decision on this in August. Council will consider the outcome of the VCAT's decision once it's made public.
The next question is from James Rivers about risk of legal liability. Is Council aware it may be legally liable if it allows the WTS to proceed against EPA advice, especially if harm to residents occurs? And again, the Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you. The waste transfer station cannot operate without the required permissions or approvals from the EPA. Council understands our legal role as a responsible authority. Council also followed the EPA's refusal of a development licence for the waste transfer station, and now VCAT have been deemed the appropriate authority to decide the development licence. Should VCAT uphold the EPA's decision, the planning permit issued will become redundant.
The next question is from Gillian Nambu about the Ageing Well Action Plan. I can see that the current Living and Ageing Well Action Plan is finishing this year. When will the new one start being developed, and when will the views of Casey residents be sought on what the priorities should be of the new Living and Ageing Well Action Plan? The Acting Director, Community Life will respond.
We are currently working on the development of the new Living and Ageing Well Action Plan as the current plan comes to an end this year. The views and experiences of Casey residents are vital to shaping the priorities of the new plan. We will actively be seeking feedback through the development phase. This includes working closely with our community reference group, listening to feedback from older residents and their families, and engaging through multiple channels such as surveys, workshops, pop-up events and online platforms.
The next question is from Gillian Nambu about youth services. Does Council plan to outsource youth services? If so, when and what particular youth services? We really need strong council-run services to give our youth a great chance at life, which will strengthen the whole community. The Acting Director Community Life will respond.
This year, Council has been undertaking a review of its youth services. However, as the review is still underway, no decision has been made.
The next question is from Paul Spencer of the House Greenman. Laws and bylaws. Can a corporation make a law or bylaw? The Director Customer and Corporate Services will respond.
Casey City Council has the ability to make laws and bylaws under the Local Government Act, which empowers local government agencies to address specific needs within their communities. By following a structured legislative process, councils ensure that the laws and bylaws are well informed, representative and effective in promoting local governance and community welfare.
The next question is from Trudy Quiros about failure to apply precautionary principle. Why hasn't Council applied the precautionary principle to the WTS, considering the serious environmental and health warnings? The Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Council's planning officers have assessed the application for the waste transfer station based on the applicable legislation and planning controls. A permit was granted subject to a number of conditions addressing environmental factors. You can request a copy of our assessment of the proposal from our governance team.
The next question is from Annette Newey about roadworks. With the ongoing roadworks within Casey, what type of guarantee does the contractor who completes the works provide? How long do they guarantee its safety for? How long is the guarantee against potholes and or any other defects in the quality of the roadway? The Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you. For road construction works carried out under contract on Council's road network, Council requests and retains a bank guarantee as part of commencement of the contract. The defect liability period is 12 months from the date of practical completion of the project. For other works carried out not under contract but where Council has sought a quotation or quotations, a bank guarantee may not be retained. However, a 12-month defect liability period from the date of project completion still remains.
The next question is from Annette Newey about ICLEI. Does ICLEI take into account the specific climate in Australia, or does it use the same strategies and policies in every country as if they're all the same? Can you list specific policies that relate to the Australian climate? The Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you. Council is not a member of ICLEI, the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives. This question is best directed to ICLEI.
The next question is from Bernadette Dixon about contractual assumptions versus statutory environmental obligations. Given the SEM AWP Chair's admission that all participating councils, including Casey, signed binding agreements to deliver waste to Maryvale on the basis that the Hampton Park WTS would be to gain a permit, how does Council reconcile this with its obligations under Section 25 of the Environment Protection Act 2017 and the Local Government Act 2020 to act lawfully, reasonably and in a risk-informed manner, especially now that the EPA has refused the permit due to unacceptable health risks? The Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you. The issuing of a planning permit and the SEM AWP procurement were two completely separate processes. As a responsible authority for the area, Council's planning officers have assessed the application for the waste transfer station based on the relevant legislation and planning controls. A permit was granted subject to a number of conditions addressing environmental factors. As a separate process, and one that started a number of years before the planning permit for a waste transfer station was received, the SEM AWP procurement process was facilitated by the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action on behalf of the 9 participating councils. Under the resulting agreement, it is the responsibility of the proponent to achieve all necessary approvals, including the planning permit and the EPA development licence.
The next question is from Bernadette Dixon about negligence in entering contract absent WTS viability assessment. Negligence in entering contract absent WTS viability assessment. Question: how does the City of Casey justify entering a binding agreement with Maryvale for long-term waste supply prior to undertaking due diligence on the viability, planning risk and environmental approval of the Hampton Park WTS without conducting community consultation or impact assessments? And how does this align with the Council's statutory duties under the Local Government Act 2020, Planning Environment Act 1987 and Environment Protection Act 2017? The Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you. It is the responsibility of the proponent, in this case Veolia, to achieve all necessary approvals, including the planning permit and the EPA development licence.
The next question is from Rowan Dixon about traffic and safety risks from WTS trucks. What traffic and safety impact modelling has been undertaken or made publicly available to assess the risks associated with the A-double trucks operating from midnight if the WTS proceeds? This represents one of the most significant operational changes in our community, yet no community consultation has ever taken place. Again, the Acting Director, City Planning Infrastructure will respond.
Council considered traffic movements as part of its assessment of the planning proposal. You can request a copy of our full assessment of the planning permit application, including consideration of traffic matters via our governance team. Veolia has sought permission from the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator, the NHVR, to allow A-doubles to travel between the Veolia site and Maryvale paper mill site. Hallam Road cannot be used for these types of trucks until permission is received from the NHVR.
The next question is from Rowan Dixon about Charter of Human Rights compliance. How is the WTS consistent with the Victorian Charter of Human Rights, particularly the right to health, safety and dignity, given the EPA's refusal on the grounds that the facility poses an unacceptable risk to public health and the environment? And the Acting Director, City and Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Council has acted consistently with the principles contained within the Victoria's Charter of Human Rights and Responsibilities. We have applied the principles through the planning scheme and considering safety and amenity impacts as part of our assessment of the waste transfer station. This includes conditions to manage these elements of the proposal.
The next question is from Giovanna Dianabla about restricted public access to council meetings. Why has Council introduced a cap of 80 attendees with a strict pre-registration process, thereby limiting public participation in council meetings? What justification exists for this, and how is it compliant with sections 66(1) and 66(2)A of the Local Government Act 2020, which requires council meetings to be open and accessible to the public unless specific exemptions apply? The Director, Customer and Corporate Services will respond.
Council has introduced a cap on attendees to ensure a safe and orderly meeting for both attendees and our councillors and council staff attending the meeting. This process is not uncommon, with many other local councils having implemented similar measures. This is compliant with section 66(1) and 66(2)A in that the meeting is still open to the public for online viewing via live stream. More specifically, Council are limiting attendance in line with section 66(2)B and 66(2)C relating to security concerns and a necessity to do so to enable the meeting to proceed in an orderly manner given the February Council meeting experience.
The next question is from Giovanna Darnablal about community voice suppression. Given the rising number of community members being turned away or discouraged from attending council meetings, does council recognise this practice as suppressive? How will council address the optics and legal risks of being seen as deliberately obstructing democratic oversight? The Director, Customer and Corporate Services will respond.
Council provide a number of other avenues for meaningful community engagement outside of council meetings that residents may find more valuable than attending a council meeting. The decision to cap attendance at council meetings is not intended to suppress community involvement or obstruct democratic oversight. Rather, it is a practical measure introduced to support the safety and well-being of all attendees. Importantly, even with capped numbers for physical attendance, the meetings remain open to the public, as required under the Local Government Act 2020, and we take other steps to ensure access, such as live streaming meetings online, publishing proceedings, and providing opportunities for public questions prior to the council meeting.
The next question is from Peter Duncanson about enforcement during review. Why does Council continue enforcement actions, inspections, notices on residents while the local law is under review? Will Council implement a full moratorium on enforcement during this process? The Acting Director Community Life will respond.
Thank you. Compliance and enforcement actions under the Casey Community Local Law will continue during the review. However, permit and application fees for private land use permits have been suspended until the review is complete.
The next question is from Brianna Nish about timing of operations and amenities impact. What justifications does Council have for supporting WTS operations starting at midnight in a residential area? We have seen many complaints recently due to Resource Co working around the clock. This would be no different and not okay. The Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Council's planning permit requires Veolia to provide updated noise modelling to Council satisfaction as a precondition of any development commencing for the waste transfer station. This would include an assessment of the noise generated by the proposal overnight.
The next submitter is Monique Ruter about no CCTV in Bunjil Place and Casey Arc car parks and increasing crime and criminal damage in these car parks. There's increasing Facebook posts regarding crime in Bunjil car parks. 9th of May, I was victim of a significant car damage. The offender mounted the parking median strip, badly smashing in the front of my car whilst parked in a disabled bay. We're without transport for a month and up for the excess on my insurance without details of the offender. Public perception of safety in these car parks is low. Will the Council speak to a Bunjil security supervisor to get stats on CCTV requests and put CCTV in? The Acting Director Community Life will respond.
We're sorry to hear about the unfortunate incident involving vehicle damage in the Bunjil Place car park. Council does not install CCTV in public places such as car parks. Council is currently working closely with the Victoria Police and the Westfield security team to address the safety and security concerns in the car parks surrounding Bunjil Place. Our community safety team are undertaking safety audits and will provide recommendations about how safety and security can be improved in these public places.
The next question is submitted from Brianna Nish about climate impact of waste compaction and transport. Has Council evaluated the emissions impact of WTS's waste compaction and increased truck movements? The Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Council has not specifically considered greenhouse gas emissions from this proposal. As a responsible authority for the area, our role is to consider a range of criteria against relevant planning laws and controls, including the Casey Planning Scheme and the Planning and Environment Act 1987.
The next question is from Monique Ruter about no disabled car parks around Fleetwood Primary School or any local schools. I recently received a parking infringement near an entry to Fleetwood Primary because there are no disabled parking spots on the street for parents doing drop-off of little ones. I have a disability and so do my 5-year-old twins, making drop-offs challenging. Will you look into and action a change to make available an accessibility parking spot close to the entry points of local schools? The Acting Director, City Planning and Infrastructure will respond.
Thank you for the question. The City of Casey has 102 schools. It is difficult and costly for Council to install accessible parking bays, especially on streets with parallel parking, because current standards require them to be wider than regular bays and include additional infrastructure like ramps. Near schools, the pick-up and drop-off zones provide a viable option for parents with disabilities. Children with disabilities who require supervision can be assisted by school staff in these locations. School management may be able to assist with options to improve accessibility.
Mayor, that concludes the council meeting public question period. Just to notify councillors and community that we received 66 questions. There were 10 public questions that were ruled invalid. An additional 2 public questions outside the 66 were received after the 10 a.m. cut-off, and the following submitters have been notified of those positions. Those were rendered invalid: Chris Lucy, Oliver Smith, Ray Darley, Brianna Selling, Brenton Selling, Shannon Lynch, Sarah Sherlock, Paul Spencer of the House Greenman and Coralie Broben. And in relation to public questions received after the 10 a.m. cut-off, Andrew Quiros and Joan Quiros. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Patterson. And that concludes our public questions. Item 7. We'll move now to the final items on our meeting agenda. So there were no late reports for this council meeting. Item 9, urgent business. There were no urgent business items received for this council meeting. Item 10, notice of motion. There were no notice of motion for this evening's council meeting. And item 11, closed council. There are no closed council reports for this council meeting. So on that note, we'll move to item 12, which is to formally close this council meeting. I'd just like to thank the members of the public who've joined us online and also in person tonight on a chilly Tuesday evening. So thank you for taking the time to come down, and thank you to councillors, officers, our AV staff for your contribution. And I now declare this open council meeting officially closed. Thank you.